Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Don't Talk Sports. My name is Dylan. In today's video, what we're going to discuss is we're going to be talking about the 12-team playoff coming in the year 2024. We're going to be kind of going through discussing everything there is to know about this whole playoff system. When you see this video, this article has already been out for about a week. It's from Heather Dinich, the main kind of ESPN college football writer for college football. She does all the main news breaking whenever it comes to the CFP. And in this article, I'll put it in the description down below if you want to go check it out for yourself. But she basically goes very in depth as to how you get into playoffs, because as we know, last year with Florida State going undefeated, everybody was like, okay, how the fuck do you get in the playoffs anymore? It's going to go into depth of how you get in the playoffs, what teams or what conferences basically are going to be eligible to automatically possibly get an automatic bid. We're going to talk about when the playoff games are all going to be, how it's going to work with the home games. There's going to be home games. There's going to be your quarterfinals, semifinals, your finals, and obviously national championship. And ultimately just kind of me giving my honest reaction to kind of how I think this is going to work and if I think it's going to be a good thing moving forward. So without further ado, I'm going to stop rambling and we're going to get straight on into this. If you're going to enjoy, as always, like I said, make sure you go and drop a like on today's video. Be very much appreciated if you do so. But without further ado, let's get into it. So as you can see here, what to expect from the college football playoff in 2024. Like I said, I'll put the link down in the description down below. So if you want to check it out completely for yourself, read it, go from top to bottom. It's a long one. It's a doozy, but I'm going to be kind of going through, kind of breaking it down, mainly the important parts of the whole system of how it's going to work in this video. But let's kind of start off with the first question of who's in what conference. As we know, with the whole realignment, the Pac-12 has kind of dispersed. The Big Ten added on some teams from the Pac-12. The Big 12 added on some big teams from the Pac-12. And also Texas and Oklahoma from the Big 12 have moved over to the SEC. So as you can see here, this is going to be pretty much label who is in what conference. So as you can see, we have the SEC, every single team that's going to be in there. The Big 12, every single team that's going to be in there. The Big 10 and the ACC as follow. If you want to, like I said, you can read it completely for yourself. And the big important thing is, as it says right here, none of them will have divisions. So the top two teams in each league will face meet in their respective conference championships, retiring American Athletic Conferences. But Commissioner Mike Aresco said he believes that even though more history and rivalries will disappear, the love for the sport will remain. Saying here, and I quote, "People enjoy watching games." Aresco said, quote, "If USC is playing Ohio State, are people going to say, yeah, it's a Big Ten game now? I have no interest. I don't think so. The sport has a hold on America." And Aresco says that any other sport. And I do like that part, because now instead of like Ohio State, Michigan, if you win, you move on to the Big Ten title game and you get to play the winner of the West Conference in the Big Ten, where it was always like a Wisconsin, an Iowa, a Northwestern, Illinois, you were always going to win that game. But now we could get Ohio State, Michigan in the Big Ten title game right after they just played each other. We could get Ohio State, Penn State, a Michigan Penn State, a Michigan USC, a Michigan Oregon, an Oregon USC Big Ten title game, for all we know. Like, for all we know, next year we could literally get the two Pac-12 teams of USC and Oregon going to the Big Ten title game, just basically sweeping the Big Ten and saying, excuse me, Pac-12 coming through, we're going to take your conference. Now, I know a lot of people have the question of how do teams get into the college football playoff. It says here, first, Exhale, an undefeated Power 5 champion like Florida State, will never be excluded again. Quote, "The automatic conference champion was something that was important to the ACC, and I know it was important to other conferences too," said, quote, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. "The 11 presidents and chancellors who have the ultimate authority over the playoffs are expected to soon approve the model that rewards the 5 highest ranked conference champions and the next 7 highest ranked teams. That places a reward emphasis on the conference championships at games." It says here the 4 highest ranked conference champions will earn top 4 seeds and receive a first round bye. The other 8 teams will play in the first round with higher seeds hosting the lower seeds on either their on campus or at another site designated by the higher seeds institution. Now, just in case anybody's confused, just to kind of quickly clarify, it says here, "And you thought it was hard now, be careful not to confuse the seeding with the selection committee's ranking. The 13-member committee will still issue its weekly top 25, which will be used to determine the highest ranked conference champs. That means, though, that if Georgia wins the SEC and is ranked number 1 by the selection committee, and Alabama loses that game and is number 3 in the CFP ranking, or even number 2, the Tide will be then seeded at number 5 behind 3 other conference champs and Georgia." So just in case anybody gets into a little bit of a hissy next year and say, like it says, Georgia ends up being number 1, Alabama, they lose, they go down to say like number 4, number 3, and everybody's gonna start flipping out and saying, why are they now number 5 or number 6 in the rankings? They were little number 3 or 4 over here, because they didn't win their conference. Now, the part that I find interesting, it says here, historically, the selection committee releases 6 rankings, which would likely begin on November 5th, like they've usually done, but it is expected to be determined in April at the annual CFP spring meeting. As of now, there is no minimum ranking requirement for the 5 highest ranked conference champions. Any independent like a Notre Dame cannot earn a first round bye because it cannot win a conference title. And that will also apply to teams like a Washington State and an Oregon State because they do not have a conference. It says here that they are actually in a temporary scheduling arrangement with the Mountain West and can compete for the national championship, but aren't eligible to win the Mountain West Conference and don't constitute a league of their own per the NCAA and the CFP rules. Now moving on to when are the CFP games. It says here first round. Like I said, they're going to be on campus. First round, we're going to have the first game will be a Friday, December 20th, 2024. This is already pretty much set in stone for the schedule. December 20th, 2024. There's going to be a game. It's going to be in the evening. Then on Saturday, there's going to be December 21st, 3 games. One in the early afternoon, probably like a 12 o'clock. There's going to be a late afternoon, probably like a 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then the evening, which is going to be like a 7, 7:30, 8 o'clock. And like I said, those games will all be on campus. They will be pretty much like a 5 versus 12, a 6 versus 11, a 7, 10, and an 8 and 9. And in case you're still confused, 5, 6, 7, and 8 will all be the home teams. 9, 10, 11, 12 will all be the road teams. Which means for all we know, if say like a team like a Penn State, Ohio State, a Michigan makes it to the playoffs and they're not like one of the big, one of the conference champions, and they have to, as we know, up there in the Northeast, it snows a lot. You could very well get like a Florida State or an Alabama or a southern team basically having to go up and play in the snow in the dead of winter, basically there towards Christmas. For the teams that had to play in those games, they will be making it through, and then if you do make it through, you make it to the quarterfinals. If you lose, you're out. If you win, you move on to the quarterfinals. Now here where it gets fun. The top 4 teams that had the bye week, now they will begin playing. It'll be kind of the same way as like the NFL does. The highest seed, I believe, will just play the lowest seed and so forth. It'll be kind of in that same system. It says here in the quarterfinals, Tuesday, December 31st on New Year's Eve will be the Verbo Fiesta Bowl in the evening time, probably like a 7, 7:30, 8 o'clock, somewhere in there. Wednesday, January 1st, 2025 will be the Chick-fil-A Bowl early afternoon. Like I said, probably like a 12 to 2 o'clock, somewhere in there. The Rose Bowl game will be late afternoon, around probably like a 4 or 5 o'clock, and then the All-State Sugar Bowl will be in the evening, probably about 8 o'clock. And obviously, if you make it through that, you will be then on to the semifinals. And here's where basically we're just back to what we were before, but now it's like you have the chance of maybe you get some new blood from those first 4 games here, and then even from these games here to possibly knock off one of those top seeds and make it into the big dance. Like I'm sure odds makers, whenever we get to this point, will probably just be betting, okay, 1, 2, and 3, 4 is going to just constantly make it in to the semifinals. But who knows? Maybe we get an 8 and maybe like 11 or maybe like a 6 or a 5 makes it in. But obviously with the way the kind of the ranking or the bowl games are working this year, the Orange Bowl will be then on Thursday in the evening, and then Friday the Cotton Bowl. They're not going to be doing them both on the same day, but as we can see by the schedule, January 9th, January 10th. Usually we would have already had the national championship game happening here in like 2 days from that January 10th. Now January 20th is going to be when the national championship is, so we're basically pushing the games way out. January 20th, as you can see by the calendar right now, we are literally going to be playing the divisional round of the playoffs of the NFL when the national championship is happening. So we're going to be getting a little bit more football as the year goes on. And I do like the way how they're kind of trying to keep the schedule as we get later here towards the playoffs to kind of keep the games more weekdays or try and keep it kind of Thursday, Friday. That way we're not bumping into the NFL, because if the NFL is on in the playoffs, I'm sorry, but college and NFL working back and forth, somebody's going to lose ratings. Now, I asked this question a couple of weeks ago whenever Kirk Herbstreit kind of had a little quote that he put out. I'll put that video up there if you want to go check that out. But he was talking about how bowl games have just been kind of de-escalated and they just don't seem appealing anymore to people because players just drop out. Bowl games are nothing to be pretty much talked about anymore. It says here, traditionally, the bowl season has started the second Saturday after the conference title games, which will now also be the first or when the playoffs start. Nick Caparelli, executive director of bowl season, said the organization will meet with the conference commissioners and ESPN in late January to consider starting earlier. This will give an opportunity for some teams who just qualify for bowl games, who are excited about the opportunity to play the game sooner and then be able to get on with the recruiting. Caparelli said, and maybe some of these guys who are entering the transfer portal will play that last game because they don't have to wait around too long and then go on to do what's best for them after that. As we know, it says here the current December schedule for college football is crammed. The transfer window opens on December 4th, the day after the committee announced the playoff teams. In the 2 days after the conference title games, players were allowed to transfer through January 2nd, the day after the CFP semifinals. Sandwiched between all of that was the December 20th early signing day. Caparelli says here, and I quote, "The problem is not the bowls or the bowl system. Quote, the problem is the circumstances that we've allowed to be created around it." Quote, incoming freshmen were watching the transfer portal and transfers were watching the signing classes. Fans were watching the bowl games without some of their star players. This came from SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. He says, and I quote, "I think the recruiting calendar in December has to change." Quote, "That's not something new for me to say. We've prepared to address it. We'll spend time as a league and resend ideas again. The early signing date cannot remain where it is. That's not fair to the highest level teams where the other 110 teams in the both subdivision care or FCS. They have to be attentive that this end of football drives the lot. The notion that it's an awkward timing is reality, quote. Now, there was the question that kind of came out recently of what about these teams that they get up there around 11-0, the big games coming up, maybe they go 12-0. Do they really then need to win the conference championship game? Because if you win, obviously you get that bye week, but if you lose, it's not that big of a deal because you probably still are going to make it to the playoffs because if you're undefeated, whether you're in the SEC, Big 10, ACC, Big 12, you're going to be probably up there. If you're 12-0 going to your conference championship game, you're going to be up there around like anywhere from top 8. So with that being said, a loss doesn't dwindle your chances to go into the playoffs too much. So our team's going to want to just take a rest, or they're going to want to rest some guys. Here's kind of what is being said. Conference championship games theoretically should receive increased interest given the top 5 winners will earn a trip to the playoff and a first round bye. There has been no indication from any of the commissioners that there is a desire to relinquish such a valuable property, or at least not anytime soon. From Big Ten Commissioner Petiti says here, and I quote, "We've committed to playing a championship game." Quote, "I think in the restructure we're talking about there's enough still to play for. It does not mean something to win a Big Ten championship. Our fans really support the game and love it." Now, ultimately, to kind of wrap it up, here's what I'll say about the whole playoff format. I'll say this. I love it. People have been talking for years about how we need to move over to the FCS kind of format, the way they run things. They do it perfectly, I think. People have said, if the FBS going to be able to do this, maybe it's going to hurt the players. Are they not going to like playing extra long seasons? They already play 15 games now if they were to get to the national championship, or even 14 games if they possibly missed their conference championship and made the playoffs. With this system, they're going to be playing upwards of 16 to 17 games, depending on what kind of happens with their scenarios of getting into the playoffs and then going forward winning. All I'm going to say is it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this works out in a year. But like I said, a year is a long time away. I think it's going to work, though. I think it's going to be very fun to see. Like I said, 12 teams, top 4 are going to obviously get their bye week, but that doesn't mean shit. We've seen in the NFL where top seeds have lost. We've seen the Cowboys here a few weeks ago. They were the number 2 seed, the higher seed. Did they make it in? No, they did not. Here a few years ago, the Tennessee Titans were the number 1 seed. Did they make it to the Super Bowl? No, they did not. So just because your team makes it as the top seed in the CFP, it's not going to be much. I still think that you're going to see some teams that are really low seeds, like the 12, 11, 10, 9. Maybe we get one of them to win one of those games when they're on the neutral or on the home field crowd against somebody else. But other than that, I'm going to wrap it up there. Hopefully you guys did go and enjoy today's video. If you did enjoy, as always, make sure you go and drop a like on today's video. Be very much appreciated if you do so. If you want to watch the entirety of today's video, thank you very much, and you want to go and leave your opinion on the whole CFP thing down in the comment section down below, feel free to do so. Like I said, what's your opinion on it? Do you think it's going to work, not work? Do you like the format? Do you not like the format? Like I said, leave your opinion. If you're a fan of the content that I do post here and you want to go and hit that big red subscribe button, feel free to do so, and do not forget to hit that little notification bell to be notified the second I post. But without further ado, this has been Dylan Talk Sports. Have a great day. Peace.